Welcome to Top Advisor Marketing, where you will learn how to become a prolific online influencer, attract more ideal clients, and grow your practice. Brought to you by Top Advisor Podcasting, a done-for-you podcasting solution built just for trusted advisors. And now, your co-hosts of Top Advisor Marketing, Kirk Lowe and Matt Halloran.
Hello and welcome to another Top Advisor Marketing podcast. Today we have Kirk Lowe back, our branding and marketing master genius guy here at Top Advisor Marketing. Now, we're going to talk about something we haven't really talked a lot about specifically. We've put a lot of pieces together, but we're going to talk about the power of momentum marketing. So, Kirk, what in God's name is momentum marketing?
Momentum marketing. I made this one up myself, which I tend to do.
Yeah.
And it is, I have three questions that kind of help define what momentum marketing is. And one is your marketing constantly moving your business forward? So that kind of break that down to two. These are not part of the three, but that first one is. Okay. Is your marketing effective as a building something? So if your marketing is constantly building on top of itself and it's effective, that's what would be a momentum marketing. I've got a definition I'll share in a couple of minutes, but okay. I want people to think about this. Is your marketing effective? Is it intriguing? Is it relevant to your ideal audience? Is it engaging? Do they want to click on it? Do they want to experience it? Is it consistent? Is it timely? Is the right information there when they need it, when they want it? I guess convenient would be another thing too. Is it building something? Is it building your brand? Is it building your sales? Is it building your network? Is it building your ideal clientele? It has to be moving you forward, be effective, and be building something.
All right. What are the other two questions that you have to ask yourself?
Yeah. So the second question to ask yourself is, does your marketing build on itself time and time again? So when you're doing your marketing, is it building on the last thing that you did? And together, more marketing equals better marketing. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So if you're doing marketing that's completely unrelated to another piece of marketing, the two aren't connected. There's no synergies there. You're not building on your marketing. Does that make sense?
Yep.
If it doesn't last, if it's gone, then, right? So I call this section really, thing you want to do here is avoid sunk marketing. Avoid marketing that doesn't retain value or doesn't contribute to synergies in your marketing and things like that. So you want to avoid those things. And we'll talk about some different types of sunk marketing later in the podcast.
Okay.
And the third question is, does your marketing retain marketing value? Some of these questions are kind of interrelated, as you probably figured out listening to me read them all now. But think of this analogy. If cars were all the same price, would you rather buy a car that has better value retention? So would you rather do marketing that is worth more down the road than one thing from the next? Mm-hmm. Does that question make sense, or do you need to rephrase it for me?
Do I need? No, I think I think that second part of that is the best. If all cars were the same price, wouldn't you buy with a car with better value retention? That's very applicable to financial services, I think. Right.
So there's this. Think of it like a postcard you're sending out for seminar marketing. So I'm going to let the cat out of the bag here. One of the sunk marketing tactics or marketing campaigns, tactics, whatever you want to call it, is seminar marketing. And one example is if you send out a postcard to invite people to that seminar, the value of the seminar is done and the card goes in the recycling bin. So there's value up until the point the seminar has been completed and the card goes in the recycling bin. But what if that postcard had value outside of inviting them to an event, which is more about you than them? Although you're going to try to entice them with things that they're going to benefit from. But what if that postcard had other value? Like, let's say it shared a tip on how to save dollars in taxes or save in taxes, right? Now it's worth something. So think of marketing that the fact that can last because it has value to them, that is lasting value, means that marketing is more valuable. Make sense?
Yep.
Now imagine there's a great example of that, which is the Campbell Soup Initiative. Years ago, Campbell Soup put out these recipe cards to sell their soup. So they told you how to use mushroom soup in pastas and casseroles and all kinds of things like that. And that was a massive success. Mm-hmm. In fact, Campbell Soup, I don't know historically if that was integral in moving into content marketing, but that was one of the first forms of content marketing that I remember experienced as a kid or a person growing up. I'm sure there were others that preceded that, but that was a big one. And if in the years to come, there was a wave of companies that try to teach people how to apply what their product could do for them in their life. So that was a big deal.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an introduction to, whether or not you should continue listening to the podcast. Is your marketing, effective? Is it constantly moving you forward? Is it building on itself? And are you investing currently in sunk marketing? What does that look like? And can you actually build value in your marketing so that it continues to work for you? Those are some of the thoughts that spurred us doing this podcast.
All right. So let's define it now. So take those questions and turn this into a definition so people can sink their teeth into it.
Yeah. So the first thing we can talk about is what is marketing momentum? So defining it like you just asked. So marketing that lasts and keeps on working is one part of the definition. Another one is that it retains value. I think another thing is that it's hard to replicate quickly. So if somebody else wants to replicate the amount of marketing that you've done, the momentum marketing, they would have to start at ground zero and move forward. They couldn't just quickly replicate it. There's a lot of that happens in the industry, though. A lot of people think that by buying, I don't want to talk about that now. Wait till a little later, but I'll give you that example.
Okay.
How people are trying to cheat,
sure,
building momentum, and it is cheating, but it doesn't actually get you to pass the grade, if you will.
Yeah, it doesn't create momentum. Yeah. What is the other?
Does not achieve what you think it will.
Right. So how do you build momentum? So I understand now what you're talking about when it comes to momentum marketing, but I mean, what do you do? What are you supposed to create? Let's break that down.
So there are three ways to create momentum or to build momentum. And the first one is content. So you need to have content that adds value, is varied. So the content that adds value could be your expertise or it could be your network's expertise. People don't just care that you have expertise, they care that you have access to a network of smart people too, right? So there's value in both those things. Content that's varied and authentic, content that's professional in its delivery and creation, content that's relevant. So if you're generically spreading financial information, for instance, and it pertains to the masses, that may not be nearly as appealing as something that's specific to a very niche oriented group or vertical, if that makes sense. The next one is that it needs to be evergreen. As much as possible, you want it to be evergreen so that it's always valuable. If you produce content that is dated and it's no longer useful, either 30, 90, or 180 days later, you're probably going to want to change that. There are a lot of times that people produce content that may be attached to a year. That's not so bad because that'll last a whole year. And then you can just repurpose that and change the date every year, maybe add some new thoughts to it and keep recycling that, if that makes sense. But content builds momentum because content always has value. So content is expertise, right? Mm-hmm. It's what do you... So people always want to know that, especially in this industry, or right. Specifically in this industry.
I have a quick story about Evergreen, if you don't mind. We've got a podcasting and social media client that has written an entire Evergreen book, and she's going through some different sections of her book, and her content is applicable today, as applicable as it's going to be if we're in a recession, if we're in a bear market, if we're in a bull market. It's because it's not the stuff that you see and hear on CNBC, which is something that one of our new clients was talking to us about. He's like, Matt, I want to make sure that when people want information about stocks and bonds and trading and trends, that they're going to go to CNBC. I don't want them to use my podcast for that. I want my podcast to be information that sticks, that is meaningful, and that has legs so it'll walk a really long time. And I was like, wow, that was a really great way to say that. What do you think about that, Kirk?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a perfect way to look at it. So the other important thing outside of it, in addition to it being content, is that it's consistently delivered. So it's there when people need it, when they want it. They see that you're there all the time. When you're consistent, they know that you can be trusted. People who deliver regularly are more trustworthy. That's just the way it is. And they also can see that you're a professional. Because professionals are more apt to be consistent with something than somebody who is not professional.
All right. You started that at the beginning. The second point you have here, please repeat that again, because so many advisors think it's important in their marketing material and in their brand to say that they're the trusted advisor. You're saying something different. You're saying that you build the trust with consistency. Can you elaborate on that just a little bit more, Kirk?
Yeah, it's a fabulous point because a lot of advisors want to be seen as trusted, but the only way to be seen as trusted is to earn it. And how do you earn that? Sharing content and sharing value consistently, professionally, authentically, that's relevant. Those things are what build trust, not you saying it in your marketing copy. Yet it's most advisors who even use the word trusted advisor in their site do not prove it. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of funny, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
The people who are saying you should trust me aren't doing anything to build trust online. And that's where people learn about you. That's where they build trust now. It's not coming into your office and shaking your hand. You're building trust way before that. Mm-hmm. You're not getting the referrals that you once did or want to or think you deserve. Trust could be a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wrote a paper a couple of years ago about trust marketing. That was kind of the first version of this idea of momentum marketing, to be quite honest. And it was, how do you build trust? And it was all based around the idea of content marketing for advisors.
Huh.
Anyhow, that's in our Advisor U tab on our website. So topadvisormarketing.com and Advisor U's in the top right there.
Got it.
And there, if you click on one of the sections, I think it's just marketing.
We'll make sure that the team puts that in the show notes. Okay. So what builds momentum? Content, consistency. What else builds momentum?
And delivery. So, and this could be, you call this media if you want. It's where it gets delivered. And it needs to be delivered where your audience hang out, right? You need to understand that. So if your audience are not where you're delivering this, then you're going to be in trouble. And you need to consistently deliver this too, right? You also need to deliver on their terms. So you need to deliver it and have it available when they want. And that's the idea is when they choose to engage you. And social media is obviously the perfect example here. If you're not cluing into that, because the social media is 24/7, 365, right? It's always there, always available. If you're sending emails, for instance, that's not always the best way to build momentum. That's a good way to get them to your social or to remind them of something. It's not the place to deliver that, right? And expect that to work. So if you think you can avoid social media and just say, oh, I'm getting the same information out to them via email, you're mistaken. Email is still valuable, but it has a very specific role and it doesn't fulfill this role very well.
Yeah.
It's okay, but not great. So content, consistency, and delivery are huge ways to build momentum.
Well, let's talk about how does this build momentum now. Let's get into the rubber meets the road here.
Yeah. So one of the first things that using this content marketing strategy works is that it develops or builds credibility. So we talked about trust. This is a big part of it here too. So, are you the professional you say you are? Do you do the things you say you do? Do you walk the walk? Do you, are you generous? Are you showcasing your professional expertise? Are you showcasing that you have a strong network? These are important things. How visible are you? Like, are you there all the time or just some of the time? Are you there for 6 months, then you disappear for 6 months? That's another consistency thing. These things are all woven into the fabric of building momentum. What kind of marketing strategy should you pursue? And another big one is, can you prove your depth? And one of the ways that, Top Advisor Marketing started really differentiating ourselves as a marketing company for financial advisors was probably about 10 years ago when we started adding depth to our marketing. So what that means is if you hire a company to do a website for you, as an example, and they do a bunch of marketing copy and make you sound great, they may even call you a trusted advisor in there somewhere, likely would. If they don't help you when building that website, if they don't challenge you and help you prove your depth, prove that you are a trusted advisor, then what have they really done, right? So if you can't prove your depth, then you can't build credibility. You can't achieve a lot of the things that content marketing should be able to achieve for you. So this is where I get to that cheating part. A lot of people think they can cheat the content marketing system or strategy by buying other people's content and trying to push it off as their own, or trying to piggyback on stories that are out there. Yeah, you can piggyback from time to time somebody else's story and you might get a little bit of play on it. But if you consistently do that, who are you? Are you really a financial advisor? Are you really the expert? Are you really, the right person for a specific ideal audience? people won't know as soon as they start to question that because of how you deliver your content and the types of content you deliver. And if there's no personality or no consistency or no theme or no voice, you did that episode, our 100th episode with Michael Kitz's, I guess a week or two ago.
Yeah.
And I was listening to it before it went live. And one of my favorite parts is where Michael talks about having a voice. And he said that as soon as you worry about, what are the words he used? I think he used pissed off. But
yeah, he was talking about what would happen. Don't be so concerned about pissing somebody off. He said that over and over again. Yeah,
he said the fewer people you try to piss off, the less of a voice you have.
Yeah,
and the fewer and so be yourself, be bold. You should still be professional too. You don't want to be unprofessional, like attacking people, but you can definitely challenge, your profession or people in your profession, things like that. But you definitely need to find your voice. You cannot find your voice if you're buying other people's content. A lot of advisors can't even find their own voice when they write because they have to be fairly talented to be able to create a voice in your writing, if that makes sense. Podcasting, however, it's very, very easy to create your own voice.
All right, I want to break down depth just a little bit more. Okay, when you're talking about character, and you write this stuff and you help advisors discover this through our Brand Foundation program that we have, how do you help them pull out the character, help them explain their history? Talk about that a little bit more. I think that's really, really important.
Well, if you're trying to prove depth, you're doing things like writing a white paper, having a history of engagement and sharing content in your social profiles, because they're incredible opportunities. And I think you can probably give us a really good example of Facebook in a couple seconds here when I'm done the other things, because I know that you've talked about this before. So I'll let you elaborate on that. So a character, how do you show character? How are you involved in the community, right? How do you show that? You can do that through social media. How do you show character in your writings? What do you choose to write about? There's all kinds of ways to prove your depth, but most of the time it's by not just saying, hey, I'm a trusted advisor. I work with business owners who have between 50 and 100 employees, and I am a business transition and financial planning expert. Well, prove to me. Well, here's a white paper on 5 mistakes privately held business owners make when they try to transfer wealth from their business to their estate. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's a good start. How about the fact that you now have a podcast on that you talk about it weekly, you bring in your diverse network of people, right? So the longer you do those things, the longer you have a history of sharing content that's varied, authentic, consistent, professional, all those things, the more value you have, the more depth you prove. And then I said earlier, nobody can come in and shortchange you. That's one of the great things about momentum marketing. Somebody can't come in and shortchange that. Somebody can't come in a year and do what you did over 5 years.
Yep.
They have to take 5 years to do it. They can start building towards that 5 years but they can't. So the sooner you start building this, the more value you'll have in 5 to 10 years in practice. Not just in 5-10 years. You'll have it in 9 to 12 months, really.
Right.
That's where we're finding somewhere between the 6 to 12 mark is where people start recognizing things are going differently in their business. More confidence, more in touch with their clients, more engaged centers of influence, more referrals, more fun, big one too, all those kinds of things. So, longevity, history, consistency, character, those are things. And I think this is a perfect segue for you to talk about Facebook, because it's an incredible tool to achieve a lot of these things.
It is. And I'm going to take one step back before we take this huge leap forward, because Facebook still is a pretty big leap forward for some advisors. You have to plan for your business. We have a strategic partner of ours. His name is Joe Lucas. And one of the things that Joe does is he helps advisors create a real business plan. And very few advisors have a real business plan. And part of a good business plan is to see where you want to be in 5 to 10 years, right? You have to, this marketing, this momentum marketing that Kirk is talking about is all about the long term. Yes, you need revenue now. We understand that. And there are some ways to mix and match some of this. But if you're looking at the long term, our advisors who have done things, and I'm going to use Facebook now as an example, to really talk to a very, very specific niche that they always wanted to work towards. And it took them 24 to 36 months before they really fully understood the niche so much that people were listening, right? So, that's a long play. But now, the two advisors that I'm going to make reference to, now they are the people speaking at those niches conferences. They're the people who are having people flood to their Facebook page because their Facebook page talks about the four things that Kirk were talking about. There's a lot of posts that are applicable to the niche. There's a good history. There's a reason, a good story on why that person works with that niche. They're being very consistent. Consistent doesn't necessarily mean every day. We don't have a lot of our social media people post across every single solitary channel every day, right? We know what is pleasing the algorithm and how to get the most attention. And then last but not least, it has to do with character. So the two things that I'm going to talk about on Facebook really have to do with character. And Kirk, you helped one of these guys. He's a guy out on the West Coast. He's a 3-time Ironman, and he is consistently posting about being an ultra marathon, ultra distance, ultra extreme athlete, right? So even on his webpage, his white paper, all of the stuff talks about this is who he is to the core. Now, he specifically wants to work with CEOs or C-level executives who do these sorts of events, who have that level of discipline. Oh my gosh. Everything you read, everything you touch, everything that you see that comes from him on social media reinforces that, whether it's the images that he uses, whether it's the sayings that he has. Now, do they want to talk to him about finances? Of course, because that's part of the white paper that he wrote that you can download for free on social media for him. But it's super, super specific. And then my favorite one is the guy with the dogs. And I probably told this story way too many times, but he was an old client of mine when I was working at my old company. He lives in Tennessee, and he raises doodles and purebred labs for prison reform. And so all of the time he's posting pictures of new litters of puppies and puppies graduating and puppies going into the prison. But people connect with him. He's a great financial advisor, by the way. He's one of the real pros. But he wanted people to get to know who he was before he told them what he does. And so many of you who are listening to this are so quick to say what you do that it's like you're asking somebody to marry you before you've even gone on any dates. So those are analogies, Kirk. I know I've used a lot, but I'm hoping that the repetition of our listeners hearing these messages over and over again will start sinking in, so people realize that there's a very easy and consistent way to do this, which we believe is podcasting. That's why we do the podcast, everybody. Kirk and I talk for a living, right? We absolutely love the opportunity to talk about something that we're passionate about, because you guys get to hear the passion in our voice, and you also it makes it a lot easier for us to post socially. All right, Kirk, what am I missing here?
So I think the main point here is we're talking about momentum marketing. I use that as a new phrase to introduce people to the concept, but really what we're talking about here is thought leadership marketing. Yeah. Thought leadership marketing is marketing for financial advisors, because it builds momentum. And builds authentic momentum, proves depth, all these wonderful things. And so here's some of the things that I think have had moments where they've worked well. Typically, it's in short-term bursts. And you probably experienced short-term bursts, right? Like the roller coaster. I do a bunch of marketing. I get so much business. I can't do any more marketing. I stop, or something happens in the marketplace, and all of a sudden you stop, and then you got to start up again. So here's some of the sunk marketing things. Seminars have maybe a little bit of ongoing value in that there's some brand awareness. But when seminar is done, that seminar is not worth anything anymore. When a podcast episode has been read or listened to, it's still there for the next person. It's also there over time that you can see, you know what, we're on episode, 100 plus. And so there's a ton of credibility in there for us, right? If we were on our second podcast, this podcast would not be as effective. It wouldn't be from a momentum marketing standpoint. But the fact that we're over 100 adds a lot more. There's a lot more value in our podcast, right? In our marketing initiative. So seminar marketing is one of the sunk marketing costs. Ads, whether they're online ads or print ads, those are sunk. When they're gone, they're gone. Yes, there's a little bit of brand awareness, but brand awareness is not, in my opinion, a game that most advisors should be playing. For a great big company where you keep remembering them or keep reminded, that's fine. But most advisors do not have the money to consistently build brand awareness alone. Isn't a lone strategy. PR. So if you go on a TV show Unless that's put on YouTube, it has no lasting value. And lots of times those things are not recorded and the TV stations don't give you access to them because they control them. Same with the radio.
Yeah, radio too. Yeah,
radio. I know a lot of advisors who have radio programs and they tell me, oh yeah, we've got our own podcast. I don't need that. And I go there and the podcast is an hour and 10, their radio program's an hour, 10 minutes, and 1/3 of that is commercials. There's not a chance. And you have to go to the radio station and it's horrible and it's really clunky to get around and find it. It's bad. It's not even close to what a podcast actually is. So, if you own a radio program, do not try to act like you have a podcast because you don't. And in my opinion, podcast is way more powerful than radio. And we did a podcast on that, didn't we?
We did.
So you can go find that on our podcast channel. Sponsorships, things like that, or events that are like one-time things. Anything that's kind of one and done is sunk marketing. And the more money you put into sunk marketing, the more money you waste. And I say waste, I don't mean that seminars and ads and PR and sponsorships and events can't, but if they're all alone, they're not a good idea. If they're part of some other momentum marketing, they can have their place and you can get value out of them. But if they're the main thing you're doing, I think your marketing is going to fail over the long term, or you're going to have to spend way more money than you ought to have. And you're going to realize thought leadership marketing or momentum marketing is something you should have done years ago. So just, consider those things. Hopefully that was clear.
Yeah.
Not too hard, too harsh.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the clients that we have currently. Obviously, they will remain nameless, who do a lot of PR, radio, seminars. So they have these heavy spends. There's an office that we've worked with, spent over $100,000 a month on seminars. And they're hitting the same area so many times. One of the things that Kirk had said early on in the podcast today was that you have to be there where your clients are. But if you are only in one medium and you're yelling at them every week, every 2 weeks, every month in that medium, you just become noise. Like Kirk was saying with the postcard, with the seminar, you throw it away, right?
Yeah. Here's the crazy thing about seminars. There's so much pressure to produce an ROI that you can't just really be yourself and be gracious and offer. Like the people who are teaching financial planning courses, that's a little bit different. Mm-hmm. But because you're just value, you're not trying to sell this. The sale is they come after you, right? I know people that work, but those should not be done alone either. They should not be done in a silo, and they typically are. Most of those people don't even have nurture sequences set up.
Yeah.
They're just running the courses and they're hoping to grab a couple prospects. They run away and they leave them. So it's sunk marketing too. But if they're combined with momentum marketing, thought leadership marketing, all of a sudden that completely changes the context of that kind of campaign. So yeah, you definitely want to be aware of all those things going on.
There are a couple of things on your list though that I want to argue with you on, and I want to see how you respond to the argument of the other things you have on this list of sunk marketing. You okay with that?
Yeah. It's gloves on or gloves off. Gloves on if you're American, gloves off if you're Canadian. Right?
Well,
gloves
that's
off
right.
means you're a hockey player
That's
and you're
right.
ready to go with fists. Gloves on means you're a boxer.
Yeah. So PR. Okay, PR is very expensive. I'm going to totally give you that. But when we're talking about third-party validation and something for you to show in your history, I think PR can be pretty valuable. What do you think?
PR can be valuable if it's synchronized with momentum marketing.
Okay, I gotcha.
If you're just known, if an event happens and your story gets carried, who's going to know how to go get that story? The only way they're going to know it is if they're where that story exists. If you're not telling them if you don't chronicle where that story exists and share it from time to time on your streams, as in your email, your blog, your social channels, most importantly, then nobody will know that when it's done, it's probably done.
Sure.
Right.
Okay. That was a good response. Okay. I'll give you that.
Yeah. And PR is expensive. I think if you've got the budget and you've got the persona and you've got the marketplace that PR is good for, I think it's a great investment. And we've got some good partnerships with people who do good PR for advisors. But it is expensive and you have to be prepared for that. And you have to continue it. Yeah. There's a good lesson right there, right? Yeah. PR doesn't work. It's not a one and done thing. You got to keep going at it. So I think that the strategies that we're talking about, they're kind of woven throughout this. We haven't been super clear about them because that was the name of the show. But podcasting for your content, social media to get it out there, how to weave in some email marketing.
Yep.
How to engage them through your website and have a great story, how to prove your expertise in your website. So having a white paper podcast, maybe a financial planning diagram, which are all parts of our process here at Top Advisor Marketing. So those ideas, those things are all about creating momentum, showcasing your thought leadership. And I think that's just regular marketing for advisors these days.
Yeah.
But, avoid or lessen your sunk marketing, or find a way to make your sunk marketing part of a momentum strategy.
And that's the goal, right? Yeah. Abso-freaking-lutely, Kirk. Thank you for saying that, because the sunk marketing that we're referring to, seminar, ads, PR, sponsorship, and events, those are good marketing techniques, but there has to be wraparound services. I was talking to an advisor who did that educational seminar thingy that you were talking about. No nurture sequence. We implemented a nurture sequence, and all of a sudden he started getting trickles, right? It's because people buy from you when they're ready to buy, not necessarily when you want them to buy. And so, they came to a seminar, and it was about 8 months is what we figured out the average was. 8 months of him dripping on them after they came to his very good educational course. And all of a sudden, they just started coming in. He's like, Matt, I can't believe it. They're coming in. I was like, look, you have been consistently, one of Kirk's points, communicating who you are, character, value proposition, who you are, what is your character, and built that into the nurture sequence. It is so vital that you have these wraparound services, because a lot of you have been told forever that, events, great, bring a friend event, great, awesome. So you bring a friend event, you have a car show or a wine tasting or a dinner thingy or whatever. But very few of you have anything. You call them a couple of times, maybe 4 at the max, and then you feel like you're being a pest. Well, then, but you don't have anything after that. And then they just, they die on the vine. So Kirk, that was the goal of this podcast, was making sure that you're using these sunk marketing in conjunction. We have talked about this forever. That
yes, if you've got the budget for it. If you don't have the budget for it, then you have to think about being more efficient.
Yes.
Right. Because some of those sunk marketing activities are very expensive.
Yeah.
And some of the things that are thought leadership oriented are a lot less expensive.
Yeah.
And it seems very obvious to us here.
Well, we do it every day.
People have to embrace this. They have to feel it for themselves and have to experiment. Unfortunately, that's what lots of advisors choose to do, instead of, grabbing people who've been there, done that, and, are moving businesses forward. So I think the idea of how to integrate your sunk marketing, so like things like seminars, ads, PR, sponsorships, events, things like that are kind of more one and done oriented, and connect them to something, is a fabulous idea. Yeah. That's a good start to experience the other types of marketing.
Well, let's communication has fundamentally changed, everybody. You have to talk to people in the medium in which they're in at the time that they're there. You have to make sure that you do that. And this gives you a lot more legs. Now, we have free stuff. So, Kirk, let's talk about the free stuff that we have that people can use right now to help create this momentum marketing.
Yeah, so there's on our website, so topadvisorm.com or topadvisormarketing.com, either one. Go to the top right there, it says Advisor U. There's, I think, 8 categories of free resources in there. And if you click on podcasting, there's how to start your own podcast. There's guidelines. There's, I think there's a recorded webinar, an on-demand webinar there. There's also, if you go to our podcast, which is topadvisormarketing.blueberry.net, right? You can just click on podcast at the top of that, our topadvisorm.com website as well. We have all kinds of episodes that talk about marketing mindset, talk about the value of podcasting, the value of content marketing, how to create depth, all kinds of interesting topics that all support what we're talking about here today. So all that stuff is free and available and should help you in your business as you move forward and try to create more value in your marketing, try to be a thought leadership, and try to create stuff that's hard for other people to duplicate. I think that's one of the most interesting points about this type of marketing is it's very difficult for other people to duplicate you quickly.
Yeah. We'll make sure.
Guess what that means? Most people don't want to try.
That's right.
Like you get a couple of years ahead of an advisor, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to find another way. Well, sure. Spend a whole bunch of money, try to do some short-term marketing, blow your mind out, and we're doing the long-term marketing. We're going to smoke you.
Right. Yeah. Now we do have, we're going to make sure there's links in the podcast to, so you can pretty much one click to where Kirk was talking about. We also have the Anatomy of a White Paper, which is a fantastic download to have you show your thought leadership in a very good formatted way. the How to Start Your Own Financial podcast. Kirk has written some great white papers. In fact, some of our team here at Top Advisor Marketing has written some stuff. So if you're not following either Kirk or I on social media, please make sure that you do, because you're going to start, you see lots of stuff that we come out with. We're coming out with stuff multiple times a week to make sure that you all have as much information as you can so that you can do this on your own. Kirk and I know that we can't help everybody. For those of you who do want some assistance with this, we'd be more than happy to try to help you create true momentum marketing. Kirk, any final thoughts?
Yeah, find us on LinkedIn. That's where we do most of our chatter, and Twitter, but LinkedIn's a real good one.
Yep. All right, man. Well, Kirk, thanks, man.
Thanks, buddy.
If you have not subscribed to this podcast yet, well, this is a good reason to subscribe to it, because this is how we market, and therefore it should be how you market too. If you're really working with a marketing company right now that is telling you to do things that they don't do, well, you might want to double check who they are and why they're doing what they're doing. Lastly, if you would like to share this with a friend, another advisor, an insurance agent, an estate planning attorney, even a CPA, you know what? This stuff is applicable to them too. And it makes you look really good as a financial services professional, helping them become more efficient marketers. So for everybody at Top Advisor Marketing, this is Matt Halloran, and we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.
Are you ready to change the way you communicate with your clients? Are you tired of being the best kept secret in your area? Learn how to become a prolific online influencer, attract more ideal clients, and grow your business. Contact us today and see what the power of podcasting can do for your business. Click on the Contact Us link on our website at topadvisormarketing.com and set up a call to learn more. Follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook for more updates and information.